Well, hello and welcome to Bingewatch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando with a very lovely cold, and I'm the group editor of Woman and Home and Woman magazine.
Yes, you are. And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at your new releases for the week starting Friday, the 26th of January 2024, including, the big one, Elvis star Austin Butler in Apple TV's big-budget US Air Force drama Masters of the Air, and James McArdle and Eamon Elliott in a 1990s set prequel series to the hit gangster film Sexy Beast on Paramount Plus.
We'll also be checking out Netflix crime drama Griselda and Channel 4's new documentary series about the 1980s miners' strike. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Well, apart from your cold, Hannah, Netflix's adaptation of Mary Shelley's classic horror novel Frankenstein, directed by the wonderful Guillermo del Toro, will star Saltburn's Jacob Elordi as the monster and Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein. What else is in the news?
Well, in Apple TV Plus's 10-part sci-fi drama Murderbot, Alexander Skarsgård will head the cast as a security android that has developed free will. I can't wait.
We've all been there. Well, it's a very good week this week, I'd say, one of our best. And we're going to start on Apple TV Plus. This arrives on Friday, the 26th of January. It's one of the most eagerly anticipated new series of 2024. It's called Masters of the Air. And here is a clip.
Major Egan, you were the first pilot assigned to the 100th.
Me and Butler.
You are in charge of 35 planes and 350 air crewmen.
Don't you die on me before I get over there. Something big is brewing.
The 8th will be sending up the largest air armada ever assembled in the history of mankind.
This has got some Hollywood pedigree behind it, Hannah. Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg are both involved. And of course, they brought us Band of Brothers, the wartime drama. Well, now they're taken to the skies in this one about the US Air Force, specifically the 100th Bomb Group, who were nicknamed the Bloody 100th because of the heavy losses they incurred in combat missions. And it starts in 1943. The unit are arriving in Britain and they're going to start daytime bombing campaigns in Europe. But it's a very, very dangerous game. So, great cast. You've got, as we said in the intro, Austin Butler, who starred as Elvis in Elvis. He's just too good looking, really, isn't he? He plays Major Gail Buck Cleven, and the Capture's Callum Turner plays Major John Bucky Egan, and they are flying these B-17 flying fortresses into German territory and try to drop their payloads and make it back. It looks amazing. It looks cinematic. The dogfights, all the aerial stuff is terrific. It's got almost a kind of slightly old school feel to it, I would say, somewhat appropriate perhaps because it's a period drama, with the dialogue and the characters. It's also got a little bit of the kind of Top Gun vibe, but obviously much more retro than that. It's also got among the supporting cast Barry Keoghan, of course, from Saltburn, and Ncuti Gatwa, who is the new Doctor Who, and it's based on the book of the same name by Donald L. Miller. There's been a lot of hype around it, and I've got to say it justifies it. The action sequences are gripping, but you really do care about these characters. You buy into them, and the bombing raids are gripping, and you're thinking, who's going to make it back? Because, I mean, the rate of casualties for this group were just staggering, really. I mean, you were really against the odds in terms of survival. And Butler is just super cool as the leader of the gang. He's great in this. Very watchable. So much hyped, but I would say it's lived up to it. It's a fantastic piece of television. Hannah, what do you think?
I actually thought it was brilliant. I mean, this is, like you say, there's been some huge hype, hasn't there, about this, and for good reason, actually. And as you say, a stellar cast, some big names. I mean, it cost something like $250 million to make. I mean, absolutely incredible. I mean, it is a really big show, really big production. I remember, I digress slightly with this, but it gives some context because war type films and series send a bit of a shiver down my spine. I studied war poetry when I was younger, and it still resonates now. And, you know, hearing those kind of sirens and those noises and everything going on, I don't know, it absolutely, it resonates still. And this absolutely packs that punch in every way. It's kind of, it's action-packed, it's thrilling, you learn something. It feels like it's so well put together, well authored, well structured. There's nothing not to really like, but it is intense, there's no doubt about that.
Over on Paramount Plus, arriving on Thursday the 25th of January, we have a new crime drama series called Sexy Beast. And here's a clip.
Go home and lead a quiet life.
Only if you come with me.
So tell me then, what's your full-time job?
Me? I'm a thief.
Please don't tell me you're trying to steal my heart.
Yes, so Sexy Beast. Some of you will remember this first time round. It was in 2000. It was a film starring Ray Winstone and Ben Kingsley. In fact, it was just when I started on the showbiz circuit, and I interviewed Ray Winstone at the time. So this really kind of is good that we're talking about it today. But it's interesting because this is a prequel. So this is season 1, obviously, and there are 8 episodes. Usual scenario where 2 or 3 are dropped first, and then you can get them weekly from there on in. And so this is a prequel, as I say. So originally, if you don't know Sexy Beast, do I think you need to watch it first? I think it probably helps. You don't have to, but I think it probably helps to kind of sets the scene, I guess, or you know where it's going, because this is before all that happened. So, as I say, Ray Winstone starred as the career criminal Gal Dove, and Don Logan was played by Ben Kingsley, and they were criminals. They were gangs, and they were. Well, Gal Dove was a small petty criminal, and then he was kind of lured out of that into doing something much bigger. And so this goes back beforehand, and it follows the younger Gal, who's played by Mayor of Easttown's James McArdle, and Don, played by Eamon Elliott. And it's set in the early 90s East London, so they're making their money by being small-time criminals. Again, they have to get involved with a very powerful gangster. That changes their life. There's this sort of, also there's the romantic side of this as well. Someone that he meets, does he really want this big criminal life or not? And there lies the question. But I think sometimes once you're in that world, you can't really get out. From what I've seen so far, I did enjoy this. I think the narrative and it's a bit dry in places. And also the person that plays Gal, James McArdle, I think he's just playing up to the I suppose what Ray was kind of like in the second one. But I sometimes I kind of want him to break out to be who he is, because some people won't have seen Sexy Beast. I don't know if you felt the same about that. But I thought it was good. It's pacey. And again, you get a snapshot into a world that seems glamorous, but really is not so. So yeah, good. But I did think I thought it was a bit clunky in places.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with my impression of Ben Kingsley from the film. No. Okay, they've got that out of the way. So this got a pretty lukewarm review in The Guardian, Hannah, but I really enjoyed it, I must say. And it starts, the feature film, of course, started with Ray Winstone on his budgie smugglers on a sun lounger in the scorching heat, and he's living a new life in Spain on the back of this big job that he pulled back in the day. This one starts, it looks like it's in similar fashion, but as the camera pounds out, he's actually on the roof of a council block. So, and I was interested to find out, particularly the Ben Kingsley character, Don. I was really interested to know how did he turn into this terrifying psychopath from the film. So, yeah, I do think McArdle, as you say, he really is convincing as a younger version of what Winstone did, and Eamon Elliott is great as the younger Don, who just has such a short fuse. But what's particularly interesting is that we meet his sister, who is played by Tamsin Greig, playing against type, and she is quite scary and really good as Don's sister. And we find out a little bit about why he is the way he is. Elsewhere, you've got Sarah Greene from Bad Sisters plays Dee Dee, who was played by Amanda Redman in the film. And in the film, it mentioned that she had this kind of background in the porn industry. So we see that happening. And she's clearly someone who's quite ambitious. She's kind of like the person with drive. Whereas Gao is offered this opportunity by the gangster who is in the film was played by Ian McShane, via one of our favourites, Paul Kay, who is terrific in this, and he looks very similar to the character he played in The Stranger. Anyway, although it's had rather lukewarm review, I really enjoyed episode 1. I thought it was very funny. I thought it was stylish, a little touch of the Guy Ritchie's. It hooks me in. I thought it was great. Over on Channel 4 and All 4, arriving on Thursday the 25th of January, we have a new 3-part documentary series called The Miners' Strike 1984, The Battle for Britain. And here's a clip.
You've only got to do one thing to win this battle. To remain united and determined. And if you do that, you'll be able to say to your sons and to your daughters, with pride in your eyes, that in 1984, I stood alongside my trade union.
The 80s, Hannah. TV has a great appetite for all things 80s, as we often say. And I was in my last year at university in 1984. And of course, a lot of student unions did get quite heavily involved in supporting the miners' strike back then. So this is directed by Tom Barrow, and it's looking back at the miners' strike. So you had Arthur Scargill, very charismatic union leader, demonised, of course, in the right-wing press, naturally. And you had Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister, trying to close down the coal industry in Britain, and really using the police in a quite terrifying way. So I have watched episode 2. So episode 1 is all about Shirebrook, which is a Derbyshire pit village that was dubbed the Belfast of England because it was bitterly divided over the strike. You know, we hear from police officers, we hear from miners who are on strike, we hear from people who are working for the NUM. But yes, episode 2 is all about the so-called Battle of Orgreave. There was going to be a picket at this coking plant, and usually the police would put up roadblocks to stop miners getting to places to picket. But in this case, they let them all go for some reason, and they just shipped in a huge number of police. And then, as you'll see in the footage that was shot by the NUM, mounted police with batons just charged these miners and started smashing them on the head with batons. It was absolutely terrifying. It's like something out of a police state. And it was clearly just government policy. We are going to break this strike with violence. It's absolutely shocking. And I mean, we've had the post office scandal and the drama about that, and rightly public furore. There should be a similar outcry about this, because of the way the miners' strike was handled, and particularly the way the police force was used, is absolutely shocking. And you can see the people who were there being beaten up by the police are still traumatised by it when they were just peacefully picketing. So it's a great piece of social history, a shocking piece of social history, and that tells us something about, you know, the attitudes of the unions under the Tories, which some would say continues now in the current wave of strikes. But yeah, it was very well done, I thought, and very moving. What did you think, Hannah?
Yeah, it is really moving, and a time that I don't particularly remember, if you like. So again, talk about sort of potted history, kind of fills it all in. And what's interesting about this is that each episode tells a story, doesn't it? So from the strike, so you can really see it's not just one-sided. It causes fractures within families, within communities, huge divisions. How people felt, what they thought was right, because everyone thought it was wrong, someone thought it was right. And I think that's the really interesting part of this. And it's it's part of our history. It's part of the fabric of where we are today. And it was a massive, massive upheaval for the country, and incredibly complex, and some terrifying times right there. So for me, it was it was very, very interesting.
And I forgot to mention that will be available as a box set on all 4. We're going to move over to Netflix for our final offering. It's another crime drama series. It arrived on Thursday, the 25th of January. It's called Griselda, and here's a clip.
For the last 3 years, Griselda Blanco has owned Miami, distributing cocaine.
Ms. Blanco's operation has been efficient, deadly, and incredibly successful.
Well, we were talking earlier, weren't we, Ian, about scary women, and I'll tell you what, Giselda Blanco is scary. She is tough. She is the boss. So this is, honestly, I thought it was absolutely, from what I've seen of it so far, thought it was, or had the potential to be very brilliant. So this is the team behind Narcos, and it's a new drugs crime drama. Sofia Vergara plays Griselda Blanco, and she plays the part of a real-life Colombian drug lord. And what I love about this, it's total female empowerment. So, usually the drug lord is the man, isn't it? The big, built, burly man, running rings around all the women at home who are enjoying the money. No, not here. So she becomes the godmother of the 1980s Miami underworld. So forget about the Godfather. It's all about the godmother. She is also an executive producer, and she's inherently in it all the way through it, if you know what I mean. You can see every part that she plays, and I think it's absolutely great. As I say, ridiculously dramatic, majorly empowering. Of course, I'm not suggesting that anyone should become a drug lord, clearly, but the idea that she just literally has everybody, she's got so much confidence, because everyone wants her life, people want to stop her from dealing and doing what she's doing, and yet she just has this brazen, and even if she's not feeling confident inside, that confident exterior of no fear. And a bit like when we were talking before, this kind of world which is kind of foreign to you and I, and not having a full understanding of it, but once you're in it, it's really hard to get out of it. And let's be clear, this is very, very real. This actually happens. And I know that Sofia Vergara, when she's been talking about it, says that she grew up in Colombia during the drug trafficking era, and so therefore it was a very difficult time, and she knows it's part of her country's history, and she wanted to portray how this woman was transformed because of this business and the road that she went down. It's really pacey, it's really dramatic, it's really exciting, and I thought it was great. What did you think, Ian?
I loved it. It's a terrific role for Vergara, of course, who's best known for Modern Family, a great comedy series. And they have sort of tweaked the backstory to how she ended up in Miami, but I don't think that particularly matters. But yeah, so she sort of flees there. I'm not going to say exactly why, but she leaves her husband. She's already involved in the drug trade, and before that she was actually working in a brothel, but she's got 2 sons. So she flees Colombia, ends up in Miami with her boys, but she's brought a kilo of coke with her, and she tries to sort of she tries to sell it. And it's very interesting to see the sort of misogyny she comes up against and violence as she tries to kind of break into the Miami underworld. But she's a force to be reckoned with, and she's not going to take no for an answer or be messed about by these dreadful men. So yeah, episode 1 is terrific to see how she, establishes herself, and there's one amazing scene where she's just kind of emerging from this nightclub just with blood splatters all over her face, but she's scored a victory, in the face of this terrible sexism that she's faced to kind of make her mark and make some money, So it will pan out with her. She's going to have to set up a way of getting her supply from Colombia to Miami, and it's all about turf wars, isn't it? All these things. But yeah, it's great to see because these series like Narcos are pretty male dominated, and the drugs lords we think of are people like Pablo Escobar, and in fact it starts with a quote from Escobar comes up on the screen which says, "The only man I was ever afraid of was a woman called Griselda Blanco." So that tells you something. But yeah, I thought it was great. She is great. Recommended. We've got to that time, Hannah, where you tell us what the hell you've been binging on apart from Traitors this week.
Oh, well, you say that, but yes, Traitors is really, really getting there. It's absolutely brilliant. It's reaching its climax. Absolutely fantastic. Also, I delved back into The Crown. I think I told you I was really struggling with The Crown, but I'm determined. I am struggling with it. So although I'm binging it, it's a slow binge. Okay, well, as you know, I'm an absolute sucker for true crime documentaries, and on Netflix there's one called American Nightmare, which in the American press it was described as the real Gone Girl case. So it was a sort of an alleged abduction where this guy rings up the police and said, someone broke into my house and abducted my girlfriend, and it's fascinating. And I have to say, I started watching it with one opinion about what had happened, and boy, was I surprised. So yeah, it's a fascinating ride. Don't Google the case. If you don't know about it already, just let it unfold. We've just got time to look ahead to next week's offerings, Hannah. So what's on the Binge Watch menu? Well, Sienna Kelly plays a modern-day witch on the hunt for men in Manchester in the new fantasy drama Domino Day, which is on BBC Three and iPlayer.
And Donald Glover and Maya Erskine star in a remake, yes, another remake, of the spy rom-com Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Prime Video. And I should also add that today, Hannah, excitingly, you and our friend from the Eurovision Binge Watch podcast, Steve Perkins, are recording a special Traitors episode of Binge Watch. Looking forward to that. But in the meantime,